So one thing we see in support is when everything is working perfectly and then the batch just stops. The thing we have to look at is if it's all transactions or if it's just a few transactions, because that's going to tell us where we need to troubleshoot. If it's all transactions, it generally has to do with the batch, and the first thing we want to do is go in and check the batch to make sure that it's still set up to run correctly. So if we go under Setup and then go to Jobs, look at the scheduled jobs, we're going to be able to see that it was started on the 17th, the next scheduled batch date is the 18th, and then we can also go in here and make sure that the end date is still scheduled to a day far in the future. This looks correct, so we'll go ahead and cancel that. The other thing we want to look at while we're in here is if the person who created the batch is still an active Salesforce user. Often enough, somebody leaves a company, they created the batch, and now all of a sudden they're inactive in Salesforce and the batch isn't running. So you want to make sure that the person who submitted it is still an active user. If all of this looks good, what we want to do is check the order. So one thing we want to look at is the order itself and the recurring billing information on the order. All of these fields tell something. You have the frequency that says, how often do we want to charge them? We have the payment status that if there's a problem, it might be set to error and you would need to set it back to recurring. That often happens as well, and it just needs to be reset. We want to make sure that the payment stop hasn't been met, balance due. We have to look at the balance due. So the balance due is still there. We want to look at the charge date, which is the 16th of the month, and the payment start date. This will tell you what the next transaction date should be. So today being February 17th, we're wondering why isn't the next transaction date today? Why is it set for March? And with this, we want to look at, okay, so started on 2/13, it's supposed to charge on the 16th. We want to see if there's been any recurring charges that have happened in the last month that were successful. And if we scroll down to the transactions, we can see that on February 15th, we had a successful transaction that was marked as recurring. You also want to make sure that if you've changed the time of the batch to run, that the full frequency has happened. So this is set for 3 a.m. If I had changed the batch to run at 7 a.m., it might be looking at the complete week. As always, if you have questions, you can always email us at support@appfrontier.com or give us a call.